morning. Welcome to the December 5th, 2024 Parking, Traffic, and Safety meeting. I haven't had any coffee yet this morning. Would you please call the roll?
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Erica Wagona.
Here.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Stephanie Costello from the Planning Department.
Here.
And Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here. And could we please have the financial report?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now we have public comment. If you could just come up to one of the microphones, state your name and address, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. My name is Peter Whistle. I'm a resident of 579 Sagamore Avenue, Unit 75 in Portsmouth. I'm here to discuss a non-agenda item. I sent a lengthy message to the committee regarding my concerns about the proposed developments at 550 and 635 Sagamore Avenue, which will be coming before the planning board for approval. I'll stick to the main points. First, I'm personally grateful to the Parking and Safety Traffic Committee for its role in improving Sagamore Avenue between Little Harbor Road and the Sagamore Creek Bridge. Widening of the road and marking the bike lane contribute to making that section of Sagamore Avenue significantly safer for motorists, cyclists, and other users of the road. I am concerned that the benefits of those improvements will be severely compromised by plans to develop 550 and 635 Sagamore Avenue. In my opinion, those developments will result in obstruction of the bike lanes because no parking will be permitted in the common driveway of both properties to allow adequate access for very large emergency vehicles. Any visitors, delivery vehicles, landscape vehicles, HVAC service vehicles, service providers of any description that have to drive there will have to park in the bike lanes. There can be no doubt that will result in increased risk for all users of Sagamore Avenue. Traditional cyclists, e-bikers, riders on electric scooters, and other slow-moving means of conveyance will have to take the lane to pass a parked vehicle, making them more vulnerable to injury. Motorists passing a parked vehicle will have to cross the double yellow line to avoid parked vehicles. That will be particularly hazardous at 635 Sagamore Avenue, the Luster King property, as vehicles approach the crest of that hill in either direction at a closing speed of upwards of 50 miles an hour. I think this committee is well aware of the issues at that particular location. These risks can be avoided if the development plans are scaled back to construct a single unit on each property, which would allow adequate on-site parking for visitors, guests, delivery vehicles, etc. I don't know if this forum allows for a give and take of any kind, but I do have two questions. Does this committee have a role to play in making recommendations to the planning board when development plans will have an adverse impact on public safety on our roadways? And two, if not, who will represent the public's interest in assuring that the streets and roadways in the city of Portsmouth will be convenient, safe, and accessible for all transportation users?
Great, thank you, Peter. And it's not a back and forth, but we can get you those answers at another time.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak?
I'll sit at the podium. Oh, no, I'll sit at the table. Feels better joining you guys.
It's warm.
Good morning. My name's Tyler Garzo. I live at 62 McKinley, which is about 2 houses off of Route 1 near the Market Basket. I came to ask this committee to re-examine NHDOT's plans for Route 1 south of Market Basket. It's a $20 million project, and the city definitely has a say, where they are actually adding lanes and roundabouts while distracting everybody with bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Both the Seacoast Area Bicycle Rider Group and Councilmember Cook have asked NHDOT to make the road a single northbound and southbound lane, something which would slow traffic and make the road truly safer and more appealing for other modes like walking and biking. NHDOT has refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Do we have any hands on Zoom?
No hands on Zoom.
With that, I'll close the public comment, and we'll move on to, there's no presentation, so new business. A, State Street, request to eliminate parking space at 487 State Street by resident. Sample motion would be moved to refer to staff for evaluation and report back.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, or,
Nope,
okay.
not for me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And item B, Junkins Avenue at Pleasant Street, concerns regarding the site distance looking up Pleasant Street by resident. Sample motion moved to refer to staff for evaluation and report back.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this request was brought to us at a Ward 5 forum. There was concerns raised about the site distances as you pull up on Junkins to turn left onto Pleasant Street. We'll have the site distances reviewed. There are some challenges relative to private property and what we can and can't do in that spot. But, we'll take a look at it and report back.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, old business, South Street, report back on request by resident for crosswalk at Rand Court.
Tyler, are you prepared to speak to that, or is
I am
that?
prepared to speak to that.
Okay.
So we have counted the pedestrians in that general area, as was requested at the last meeting, and we found that the highest pedestrian crossing at Rand Court in an hour was 11, which does not meet our warrants to put in a crosswalk. In addition, putting in a crosswalk at this location would involve putting in ADA tip downs and pedestrian facilities on the other side of the street, which do not currently exist. And as well, the city would not really like to encourage the use of that cut through, as it is not city property, to get to the high school. So for all these reasons, we do not really feel that it is appropriate to put a crosswalk at this location. However, we would be amenable to putting up just general pedestrian warning signage in the area.
Erica?
How many of those 11 were kids?
We do not have that breakdown.
I would
I-
hazard most of them.
I would agree that most of them. It was at 9 a.m. in the morning, so.
Any? Okay. I would usually consider kids twice for counting purposes, so that would be enough in my mind to put a crosswalk in. Yeah, gosh, I don't know.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I understand your concern relative to that. I don't think it's appropriate for the city to be encouraging kids to go on private property by creating a more desirable, we should, if anything, we should be, saying, stay on the sidewalk and get to the high school this way. So it's,
Do we know how the private landowner feels?
we have not reached out to the private landowners. I suspect there might be more than one. If you're looking on, we could look at, we could find out. But there are other reasons why the kids choose to take that route, which we don't necessarily want to encourage either.
Okay.
So,
But we could put a pedestrian sign up.
yeah,
Yes.
caution pedestrian
Caution
crossings.
Crossing. I don't know if that's beneficial or not.
You require a motion to place the report on file?
I'll second that.
And do we want to make any modifications, I guess? Erica?
I would be hesitant. I feel like we either need to support crossing or not support, or discourage crossing. I think if we have that many people crossing, it's a desire line. And so if we're not gonna actually put a crosswalk in and make it safe, I'm not sure putting pedestrian crossing signs alert drivers, but don't really make it safe and may encourage more people to cross there.
And they're primarily coming up from the neighborhood across on South Street, so even if we continued the sidewalk, it's not like they're coming up from down by the cemetery so much. I mean, I suppose maybe a couple are, but probably a bunch of them are coming from the Wybird neighborhood.
Yeah, I would assume that's probably the case, although we haven't tracked the kids and where they're going. I know my kids used to use that route when they were going to high school, walking up South Street.
Other activities.
That I'm aware of, and not aware of. They would have had to talk to their mother.
And we did the evaluation during the school year.
Yes. Which is in October.
Mark?
No, I have nothing to say on it. There's a motion and a second.
Okay, so it sounds like we don't, unless Erica has more.
I'm looking, thanks for, there's a curb cut across the street. Presumably that's for the property across the street, but it does almost read as a sidewalk extension. Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
just add,
Google
that
Maps.
this photo was taken in 2011, so
Curb cut's
that,
still there.
yeah, I don't know if it exists just like that today.
I mean, the other alternative is, what you just said, is extend the sidewalk from the Edgewood driveway up to whatever street that is. Rand Court.
And that's big enough to be a CIP project, or, because we extended the sidewalk just below there a couple of years ago, didn't we?
It is. Yes, we did.
What are the sightlines like at Rand Court?
Sightlines at Rand Court are sufficient for the speeds out there. It's a fairly straight, flat section of South Street.
So that, I believe, is owned by the Edgewood Center,
That section of land?
because they own, it's all one parcel that picks up that house that's a little bit in disrepair.
I apologize to those at home. I think we're all kind of looking at Google Maps or other mapping, because the Google Maps has too many trees in it, so I can't actually see. Guess that's as much as you can zoom in.
If you go to Map Geo,
Yeah, that's
You
what I'm
wanna-
doing now.
I'm gonna pull up Map Geo on the, that way the folks do a share, folks online can see what we're talking about.
And the 2024 photo is, looks like in the fall, so, or in the spring, so you can actually see the road.
I really feel like we have no right imposing this on private property owners. And that, if they came to us and asked us to participate in something, then that'd be fine. But, this reminds me a little bit of the ABC building,
I was thinking the same thing.
which, it's all well and good if passive use that hasn't raised a red flag to anybody. But I think if we bring this to people's attention, there may be a fence put up in that location.
Do you want a fence put up in that location? Sounds like we
It-
want to discourage that
It's
route.
private property. I have not had problems with this. So as far as I know, until it came to this board, there was no need for any action from my part, from the department's part.
I would say it might be worthwhile to place on file for now and see if it comes up again in the next year, but I would be hesitant to proactively reach out because, just like the ABC buildings, we might end up with a fence instead of a solution.
And I'm sorry, how did this come to us again?
Doesn't
Was this
say.
something that a resident brought to us?
Yes, this was a resident complaint, or resident concern.
This might be one of those cases where doing nothing is probably the best course of action for us.
Yeah, I mean, there
Or
are
today.
cut-throughs that kids use to get to the high school, that are beneficial. However, it's a matter of, private property owners tolerate it or they don't.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from those property owners.
Alright,
That's not happening today.
I would support placing it on file at this time. Is there any more discussion?
And can we alert the bike ped master plan folks? I'm on that, but I feel like this would be good information to pass along to them, because I think just in general, right, like you're pointing to this idea.
What do they
that-
call it, a desired path, when you?
Desire line?
Desire line?
We've got, there's all these different routes kids are taking to get to the high school, which points to the idea that kids want to be walking to the high school, and they're doing a great job of finding ways that are working for them, but perhaps we're not meeting their needs if they're tromping through private property to get there. So maybe there's no solution, but I think it's good for us to have that on our radar as a desire. Whether or not we can meet that desire is a separate question, but it's just.
So here's one concern I would raise relative to this. There's oftentimes when the city would desire having a piece of property that's privately owned, and to talk about it in public, to go to a committee and have it, or study and have it documented in something, implies a level of participation that doesn't exist. And it would be shocking for some property owners to hear that their property is being considered for something.
I'm not
when they haven't
advocating
been-
for that at all. I'm
Well,
just noting, I think it's worth noting that kids want to walk to the high school.
I get that, but
That's-
my point is that before we incorporated it into a plan, even as a mention, I would want to reach out to the property owners and let them know that this is being discussed about their property. Because we have had situations in the past where somebody comes back and said, you had talked about a plan on my property, but you had never reached out to me. I read it in the paper, I saw it here, and it's a lesson we've learned over time that it's really inappropriate for the city government to be speaking about private property in a manner that's
Yeah.
possessive.
And even,
And
yeah,
I don't mean to imply that
yeah.
we should be planning for people's property. I think it's just acknowledging the fact that kids are finding their ways to the high school using non-traditional means. I think that's good to acknowledge.
I think
I
there is.
understand what you're saying.
A path with a sidewalk on South Street, and then you cross at Summit. That is obviously not as desirable because kids are not necessarily using that, but that's relatively the same distance.
It is.
So there is an alternative route that is probably city sanctioned, let's say.
But I understand what you're saying, Erica, in terms of acknowledging that kids are desiring other alternative routes, and we can make that generic statement
Yes.
and not imply that we're,
Yeah.
using
I'm not
private property.
advocating for any particular
Yep.
route.
Public
Just the
awareness.
fact that there are so many, I think it's noteworthy that there's so many routes that
Yeah.
kids are kind of spidering in.
Yep,
through.
I understand what you're saying.
It's kind of neat, but also just worth documenting.
I do think we've seen with the rail trail that when we do make people aware of these, the use goes up dramatically. So probably some of these gray areas are better left
Right.
gray. So with that said, all of those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And informational, Chief, the police monthly accident report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The month of October, there were a total reported crashes of 90. I think there might be a little typo on the sheet. It says September of 24, but we're talking October of 24. 38 of those 90 crashes were considered reportable crashes. No instances of any crashes involving bicyclists. One crash involving a pedestrian, which was on Lafayette Road, Dunkin' Donuts, northbound. Somebody trying to cross traffic, not in a crosswalk, and was struck, minor injury. But that's all.
I see a
Thank
lot of
you, Chief.
people crossing
Yeah,
there.
that's
It's
a
dangerous
crush,
spot.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah, right at Harbor Freight there. It's a
yeah,
heavily traveled area.
Gas station.
Thank you. City road construction projects update. We must be getting close on some of these.
Yeah, we are getting close. So Bartlett Street has officially wrapped up for the season. It will, next spring, we'll be doing final paving out there, so there'll be minor impacts for a week or so. The Maplewood Bridge has approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks left, optimistically.
For this season.
For
It'll
the
start up
season.
again next season.
And I-95 sound walls have begun construction, if you have driven I-95 recently. They're accessing that via Maplewood Ave and Rockingham Ave, so you will notice that when you are on the interstate, but other than that, just small neighborhood impacts.
And Willard and Union look like they're,
They're buttoning up for the winter. They're paved, and should be in good enough shape for plowing.
excellent.
Corporate Drive is fully paved and the curbing's up, so that's ready for plowing.
Just in time, I saw the sidewalk plaza out on my way in this morning.
Yep.
And then we have,
Actually, if I could.
Yes.
I'll wait for miscellaneous.
okay. So we have the speed feedback sign draft city policy. As everybody on this committee knows, these have become quite popular in recent years, kind of like the RF flashing beacons did. What we've learned, or I'll let Tyler or Peter speak to it, but
You can
I
speak
can
to it.
speak to it. So, obviously, we have significant demand for these devices. We've also determined that when they are put up in one location for a long period of time, they are less effective as people get used to them. So, we really see the need to have a city policy to guide how we put these up and how long they stay and their operations. Just because, I mean, people point out inequalities in where we post these in terms of location, duration, and we're looking to rectify some of those concerns.
I don't know if anybody has any comments on these. We've also made some changes. I believe the batteries go out fairly quickly, and in a lot of areas, solar power is not feasible because of the shade cover and the amount of sun we get in the wintertime. So now, I believe they only light up if you're going 5 miles over the limit. You'll see the blue light if you're not speeding. But then if you are speeding, that's when the sign will light up, because some people think they're broken because they're not lighting up, and it's just that they're traveling below the speed, or the 5 mile per hour threshold.
That is correct.
And do we need a motion to approve this, or are we going to bring this back at the next meeting to approve it?
I think this was informational, wasn't it?
We were looking for input to see what kind of thoughts you all had.
Oh, sorry, Chief.
Not input on the policy itself. I think it's needed, quite frankly. But the police, just as an FYI to residents, the police department does have its own speed trailer, which does radar and traffic calming that many folks have probably seen around town. We would still be willing to deploy that trailer wherever there is a complaint, and we can get it out there, exclusive of the policy here. So understood the telephone pole mounted signs are different, but we have the discretion to deploy that sign wherever we want, under whatever conditions we want. So that's still available, even if somebody would request a sign that doesn't fall into the proposed criteria. So.
Erica?
I think it's good for us to have something, and to have something we can point to. I'm a little, I think it would be good if we could add something and/or soften the language, but, one line about also subject to the discretion of Public Works. Because I feel like there are times where 85th percentile speed might not be 7 miles an hour above the posted speed limit, but we still have concerns, right? Like, my reaction when I read this was, mostly this is useful, but I feel like it's on the edge of where I can imagine situations that wouldn't necessarily qualify under this, but probably might be a good idea. Or a situation where it hasn't yet been 6 months, but you think it's a good idea to put it back out. I think it's great to have the duration limited, to indicate that we're gonna rotate them, and they're not just gonna go out for 30 days and then come back and recharge and go right back in the same spot. But there may be a situation where you do wanna deploy them again in less than 6 months. And Yeah, I mean, I think you hear what I'm saying, that I think we might just want a little bit of flexibility built into this. I don't know how best to word that, so, every citizen that has a request can't just point to the flexibility to say, you have to do it. I mean, I guess we never have to do it, but, I think it's good to have some structure to this, but I can easily imagine situations that don't quite fit this policy that Public Works would want to, I think some sort of line in there about Public Works may also, at its own discretion or
Why don't we
something.
take a stab at revising it and bring it back? And then that way, if there's, try to refine it a little bit. I appreciate the discretion that would provide us. At the same time, we want to make sure that, there needs to be something more beside one person saying, I want a speed indicator sign. Similar to a traffic calming request, there's an evaluation, there's a recommendation. We kind of build and measure and see what the results are. We've seen time and time again that we put these up and the speeds come pretty much back to where they were prior to putting them back up within, a month. And yes, there's the occasional person that sees it and slows down, but, on a whole, it's like people go right back, it becomes just background noise. So, the goal is to get to impact behavior and to get people to be more mindful as they're driving. So I think some flexibility would be appropriate.
I don't want it so flexible that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So I think it's great that you have the policy and just,
But I think
Threading that
tying it,
line
I think
between-
tying the posting them to a more, something similar to the traffic calming process where, just because somebody wants to put in, a roundabout, doesn't mean we do that without going through a process of evaluating, making sure
Yeah.
there's opportunity for public comment, that type of stuff.
yeah, maybe something about requests are subject to departmental review, and these are the criteria that are generally used. Something along those lines might
Yeah.
give you the ability to kind of think about it, but also, if somebody's not working on day 30 and it's out for day 31, like, that's okay, right? Like, it's
Right.
not,
Well, so why don't we do a little research to maybe what other communities are doing as well, if there's any policies out there.
Yes.
And, we'll come back with a recommended revision.
And then would that be something we approve and then becomes like a policy number, or?
At this point, it was informational, so I think once we get something more concrete, we could bring it back and you could accept it as a, it's not an ordinance, it's a operating policy, so I don't think really it's something that needs to be accepted and approved. But obviously, we want input from folks, but at the same time, there are operational policies that we generate on a regular basis, just for day-to-day operations. If it rises to a level of an ordinance at some point, then that's what we do. But right now, I would be comfortable leaving it as a operational policy for the department.
Okay, and I would like for it to be somewhere on the website so we can point people
Yep.
in this direction, because it's a good piece of information for the people that are requesting these.
Sure.
Here's our policy.
What I would recommend is putting it in with a traffic calming section, because that's typically where we get the most feedback, so to speak.
Okay, all right.
do we have a link to the traffic calming section on the PTS page? Because that might also be a good idea.
There should be. I was actually just looking in,
I don't remember it being there. I know it's a pretty simple page, and I think that's good. But again, that's probably the thing that comes up the most, so there might be value in that.
I just search for everything on the website now instead of
Yeah.
going to pages.
Other than our website. I go to our website.
it's in the Public Works section, in the Public Works Transportation drop-down. I think, yeah, we can work to, have it.
I don't want to blow up our whole website, which is otherwise, I think, pretty simple. So if it's pretty complicated, I don't think it's mission critical that we have the link, but
No, I think it makes sense.
it's a good idea.
I think it makes sense, especially because they come to us, this committee, for that type of thing, so this would be an easier route to the court.
All right, and
Maybe a link that goes both ways, traffic calming pointing to PTS and PTS pointing to traffic calming.
Yep.
And moving on to miscellaneous, it sounds like you had something, Director Reyes.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks that during winter operations, we, where is it? We will, if we have a snowstorm that's generates a winter weather advisory before 6 o'clock the day before garbage collection. So if we knew Tuesday was going to be a big storm, NOAA, the National Weather, Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, posts a winter weather advisory. They have a number of terms that it gets really confusing, but this is very specific. Forecasting accumulation of 3 to 5 inches of snow within the next 12 hours. We will cancel trash pickup for that day. So the intent is to give people a heads up before, because a lot of people put their trash out at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock before they go to bed, and it's out there. If we have a plowable event, the trash cans get in the way of operations, sidewalk trash, and it's very dangerous for our operators on the Packer trucks for the garbage collection. And due to safety concerns, we cancel for operational purposes. This is not a perfect science. There will be times when we make a call and there is insignificant amount of snow and our guys get out there and do work because there was no real plowing event. The intent is to improve safety and predictability for folks. So, this is baked into our program, but I get concerned because, there's multiple ways to get information and oftentimes people don't hear about this. So I wanted to take this opportunity to be clear that, the residents should be paying attention to snow predictions, and if it looks like there's going to be a snowstorm, don't, look at the website. Don't assume you're going to have trash collection the next day. So we appreciate the inconvenience.
Can
but
the
we
city,
think
can the city promote awareness on that?
We've done a number of
In the
press
paper.
releases. We've
Paper,
done,
online.
and the other opportunity is people can
Snow phone.
sign up for, Reverse 911, Smart 911. So you can do that to get specific DPW type stuff. You can also get fire and police. I believe you guys use that too, right?
Yep.
The other day.
So it's a great service, and it's a good way to get emergency information quickly.
Now, does the city put out a Facebook post? Because there's neighborhoods out there that have Facebook pages.
We put out Twitter posts. It's on channel 22. It's on the banner, and it's a banner on the city's website. So we do multiple, and we do the Smart 911. So we do a number of different things.
I think as we get used to that policy, people will start to learn that, if there's a storm coming, there's no longer trash pickup.
So it's automatically the next day. So if my
It's
trash,
not. It is canceled for the week.
wow.
Yep.
Okay.
We've tried it other ways around, but then you get double trash pickup, and then
Yeah.
it becomes and
Yeah.
then say it's a Friday. We're not going to do it on a Saturday. It's
So you end up getting a lot of click and fixes after that, right? People calling saying,
Yeah, but for the most part, people understand.
Yeah.
Afterwards, people can bring it to the transfer station themselves if they'd like. And if there are special situations, whether it's an infirmed or disabled person, we can accommodate, special things. But for the most part, it's, you just have to make do for that 1 week, and hope that we don't have a repeat snowstorm the next week.
And it's primarily for safety. We've had life-threatening injuries to the people collecting the trash because of weather
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah,
So-
we had a staff member lose a leg
wow.
by a snow accident.
All right, any other miscellaneous items?
Just to circle back to the crash on Route 1 involving the pedestrian. I do see a lot of people crossing near there. I don't know if there have been other pedestrian involved crashes near there, but it is a pretty long distance between crossings of Route 1 in that area. So I don't know, I think the state owns that there, so our hands might be kind of limited. But again, I think it's just worth noting that we might want to look to see if there's other And there's no other signals, right? There's crosswalks at all the signals. It's just a pretty long distance between signals there,
Yeah, it's not,
and a lot of pedestrian activity.
right. And it's a difficult sight line.
Yeah. I was just gonna
Mark, did
say
you have
about the crosswalk, it is by Planet Fitness. And then if you go south, you're not getting another crosswalk until, the
So
intersection.
Morona.
No, Morona, yeah. And those aren't well labeled or well marked. The state hasn't painted those, and so. But Chief, you've had a lot of accidents, I mean, automobile accidents there in the course of a year. 5, 6, 10?
Oh, it's certainly more than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Route 1. The city has jurisdiction, technically speaking, on Route 1 from Greenleaf Ave all the way south. So, and any crash, Greenleaf Ave intersection all the way south to the town line is ours. But yeah, I don't have the specific numbers right now, but we've had a number of serious crashes on Route 1, including within the last month of a head-on crash right at Wilson Road in Route 1. So
Yeah.
it's a busy road. There's a lot of vehicles. There's a lot of pedestrians in certain areas. So yeah, unfortunately, we do see crashes out there.
And Chief, just to clarify with Director Rice, we have jurisdiction for your guys, but I don't think we have jurisdiction for
Correct.
DPW.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, when I say jurisdiction, it's a system of, between us and New Hampshire State Police as far as ramps and interstate highways. It's not like when we go north of Greenleaf that we don't have police powers, but that's just, typically speaking, there has to be somewhat of a line in the sand as to who owns what as far as criminal activity, reportable crashes and things of that nature. And you've heard me say before, like state police has jurisdiction over the traffic rotary circles. So, but we have overlapping coverage too. So if they're tied up, we'll take it. But that's why I just mentioned that technically the line is Greenleaf Ave.
so our urban compact goes, if you go down Lafayette, Middle Street turns into Lafayette, where just Middle Road. And so from Middle Road, it turns to Lafayette all the way down past the high school where it hits where it comes into what people consider Route 1. That intersection is where the urban compact ends, meaning we're responsible for everything up into town on Route 1. And then everything south from there is the state's. Along with, they're also responsible for the bypass.
In terms of like maintenance and if we wanted to change a road.
Yep,
If
if
it's
we
in the
wanted to,
urban
if we
compact,
wanted to add
we have a lot-
sidewalks, if we
a
wanted
lot
to add
more.
crosswalks, anything, changes to lights are all,
Yeah, they haven't been painted in a while or updated.
And that's all state control. We can.
Yep.
All right, any other miscellaneous? All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Portsmouth.